Hello, good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, wherever or whenever you're getting this podcast. I'm Martin Cross, and in Crossy's Corner tonight is Tabea Schendekehl, the remarkable Tabea Schendekehl. And I say that for a number of reasons, not least because you have recently learned that you are going to Paris.
Yeah, we just got the official nomination yesterday, so that was very exciting and kind of took a bit of the uncertainty and stress away. So that was nice to finally have it locked in.
That's brilliant, and I'd love to talk to you about what your thoughts were on how far away or near Paris seemed during the season. But I think first of all, I just want to get a sense of where you are and what you're doing and how your day's been.
Yeah. So we're on training camp right now, the first of the two pre-Olympic camps, and we're in Austria, near Hallstatt. And we had a pretty full day with an erg in the morning, then a long row, and then weights in the afternoon. So yeah.
And I gather you are there with another team.
Yes, the Dutch are here as well. So it's the German men's sculling team and women's sculling team, and then the whole Dutch team is here.
Now I'm imagining. I guess that this would never happen, but you're just kind of seeing the Dutch quad, women's quad, and you turn early, and then just kind of just stay in front of them all the way down the lake. Is it like that at all?
No, we haven't
Uh,
really met up with the women's squad, but we definitely see each other on the lake. And some of our crews, our spare Frauke Hundeling, she's been going on steady state pedals with Caroline Florein. So
oh
they've kind
wow!
of linked up. So they're training together every now and then. So they're not both alone in the single. So yeah, it's
Oh,
nice.
that is really nice. That says a lot about the camaraderie and spirit of rowing or sculling. And I just thought of this, and I think I know the answer, but maybe you can clarify. There was in Poznan, the German men's sculling team had two quadruple sculls racing, and how was it decided who the representatives in Paris would be?
Yeah, so the second men's squad is development team, or
Hmm.
they're the younger ones who've just come up from U23s. And so I think racing in Poznan was about giving them a chance to get racing experience.
Yeah.
But it was never about changing the lineup who was going to be
Okay. Yeah.
going to Paris. In my understanding,
Yeah. Yeah.
it wasn't about that. It was about getting them experience. And I mean the men's squad has been going through some things. Like one of them, the stroke seat Moritz, has been sick for a while as well. So he had some
Oh
medical
no.
issues. So
Yeah.
similar situation to our quad where he just came back into the boat for Poznan, same as me, just getting back.
Mm.
So yeah, it was their first race in that lineup again.
So before I talk to you about Poznan, I just want to ask you about Olympic kit, because one of the big things about going to the Olympics, there's things like going into the village for the first time or seeing the course and all that, but one of the markers is receiving your Olympic kit.
Yeah, we haven't gotten it yet. We'll do that, or that'll happen next week on Friday. The whole team, the whole rowing team, will go
Hmm.
together to get their kit, and I think we're all very excited. I think that'll be another step of okay, this is happening. The days are kind of going by, and each step is another step closer to the Olympics.
Um, how were there days this season where that moment seemed a long way away, or perhaps seemed like it wasn't going to happen?
Definitely when I received the news that I had a rib fracture. That was pretty tough, but um, I trust my body a lot, and I know what my body's capable of. So I was able to stay pretty positive and know that I could recover in time. But that was definitely a point where I was like, okay, hopefully this is still gonna happen.
Yeah. So you were able to race at least in Poznan. That's your only time you've been in international competition this year, I think.
I raced the test race in Varese at the first World Cup.
Oh, you were in there.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was
so
still stroking back then.
okay.
Yeah. And then after the test race, well, the couple days leading up to the first World Cup, I had like a bit of issues around my rib, but we thought it was muscular, so I raced the race. But afterwards, it like got a lot worse. So we decided to pull me out for the final and put our spare in. And then when we got back to Germany, I got an MRT and it was a rib fracture. So then I was out until, Poznan was the next race.
So what were you doing for that time? Were you just on a bike and become an expert cyclist?
Yeah, I wouldn't say expert, but I biked a lot. And which first I was on the watt bike a lot. And that was okay. It didn't get horrible. Like I managed to stay. I didn't start hating the watt bike. So and then eventually I was able to get back outside on the road bike, which was really refreshing.
Yeah.
And we have a great weights coach who helped me like kind of write a weights program that I could still do to kind of maintain.
How was that? How does that work with a fractured rib? Or how do you do? What sort of weights do you do?
Like hip flexor and hip extend or like knee extension on the machine. So
Yeah.
it's just like legs isolated, like no upper body. That was pretty good. And then we did just some like body weight squats and like working with like time, like going down really, really slowly and back up really slowly. So you kind of like still gets a good burn.
Yeah.
And then kind of isolating the arms. So,
Okay.
I mean, we started that like 2 or 3 weeks after I had the MRT. So we still like let my body rest a bit, but then tried to get back into a routine fairly quickly. But I definitely got a lot of hours on the bike done, and we're joking on the team when I like went on rides with the team that I'm in biking shape now, so I have to pull the whole way. So they're just cruising in my draft. But,
yeah.
Yeah.
How challenging was motivating yourself during that period?
There were better and worse days. Like it was a really strange time because obviously like the quad was also traveling for regattas, and so at times I was like almost the only one at the boathouse, but the 2 women who were in the double were still around, so I wasn't like fully alone all the time. There were still like some people there, but I think the toughest days were like leading up to a regatta and after it, like seeing everyone race and like seeing the quad perform really well, which obviously I was very happy for them. And I knew our spares, like Lisa Gutfleisch was the spare during the season. She's a really good rower and she makes boats go fast, so I knew the quad would do well. And I was very excited for them, obviously, but it's also like it's tough to see a boat like race and you being stuck on a bike. So yeah,
I think we call Lisa super sub.
yeah. Yeah.
So so when did you sense that you'd be put back in the crew and you'd be given a chance to race at the World Cup in Poznan?
I think what was nice was that our coach Marcin Witkowski, like I think he has a lot of he gave me a lot of trust, and like he never made me question whether I would be put back into the boat. Like if I was healthy, I was fairly sure that I would be back in the boat. And he made sure that I wouldn't like start too soon or like get back into it too soon. But after like 4 weeks or so, I started erging again, and then slowly progressed in the single. And then 2 weeks before Poznan, I was able to like have my first row in the quad. And since that went well, it was like set that I'd be racing in Poznan.
So they tucked you into the 2-seat.
Yeah.
So how was that?
Interesting. It was honestly a really nice change. Like I stroked all of last season and the beginning of this season, and like all of the winter camps this year I was stroking. So I've spent a lot of time in the stroke seat, and I do love stroking, and it's very special. But being in 2-seat it feels very different. It's just the power you can apply and the feel of it. For me, I guess I compared it to rowing the C2 erg and the RP3 erg.
Oh, really?
Like stroking would be the C2, which has like a bit more resistance, I'd say. And then on the RP3, you can kind of just like kind of chop it along. You just like go.
Yeah.
So that was really fun to kind of discover that and like have a new challenge, I guess. And I think Pia has been doing a really great job throughout the season in stroke seat, and like the boat has been doing well, obviously. So it was just the smartest decision to put me into 2-seat to not disrupt things. And I think it would have been too much pressure if I would have like come back into stroke seat. Like in 2-seat, I was able to kind of move along and like not feel the pressure of like, obviously I had to perform, but in stroke seat, I think there's like, if there would have been a practice where I would have said, okay, I kind of don't feel up to it right now, I think it would have been more disruptive than if in 2-seat I like can't do a practice. I don't know. It just made the most sense, I think. So yeah.
So you had a great progression through that World Cup with some super battles with the Swiss quad that also had somebody back in from injury. So talk us through the racing and how it went for you that weekend.
Yeah. I mean, obviously it was going to be interesting to see how we would perform with me being back in the boat and like with just 2 weeks of kind of training for that World Cup in that combination. But what we said for the test race, we kind of wanted to like learn a bit from it in the way that we wouldn't like race a full race, like kind of see what we could do with like not 100% full out sprint at the end, I guess. And I mean, the test race is like, it's a really interesting concept to like, it's not a race for lanes. You can kind of just like feel out the situation, kind of see what's possible, where you're standing and all of that. And I think it was a really good opportunity to, because it's really easy to do a full out race and then just do that. But to say, okay, we're kind of holding back a bit, but then be able to do a full race on Sunday. So it was kind of like a learning experience for all of us throughout that World Cup. And then on Sunday, we were able to pull off a good race. And that was really exciting that it wasn't like, okay, we didn't have a full race before. What do we do now? We were just able to say, okay, this is the plan now. We execute the plan. So that was fun.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So one of the things, because I don't know many of the women I used to know a little bit in terms of German women scullers in previous Olympics, but maybe you could just talk us through the women in your boat, that their personalities from bow to stroke, just what they're like and how they are to be with.
Yeah, it's funny because we're all very different, but it works. Like sometimes we have to like figure some things out, but we know each other pretty well at this point and know what works well and what doesn't, and how to communicate and all of that. But so in bow seat we have Maren Völz, who's from Potsdam, so near Berlin, and she's definitely, I think everyone in this boat is definitely a perfectionist, like really wants to get things right, and she's a very, very sweet person, like can be very soft spoken, but she also has this like fire in her, which is like very interesting when you see it, because it's so different from her like everyday personality. And then I sit in 2 seat. In 3 seat is Leonie Menze. She's from Düsseldorf, and she is an incredibly hard worker, and she can push so much. Like she just is this like working mentality person. Like when we did weights, and there was like, we have this thing that measures your speed, and they were doing like seated jumps, so from sitting jumping up, and when they used the measurement device that gave you numbers, she just like went for it, had to get like the best numbers. I think like that describes her personality pretty well. And then Pia Greiten in stroke seat, she's from Osnabrück, and she is like, she gets very like focused, and like she feels a lot in the boat, and she definitely like, she knows a lot about rowing. She's our like rowing lexicon. If you need to know anything about rowing, you ask Pia. And yeah, she gets very focused and like very just focused in what she does, kind of. Yeah.
And who is the erg queen in the boat?
Pia. Yeah.
Okay.
She's the strongest erg. Yeah.
Yeah. And so one person that's very much part of your boat, and I know how important he was because I was talking to the former Polish president, Richard Stadiuk, who essentially said he tried very hard to keep Maciej Witkowski in Poland, with all sorts of offers, but he was determined to try something new. So what is it about this guy that's so good in terms of coaching and putting together a women's sculling crew?
I think he has a lot of knowledge, and he has a good plan. And his program is working. Like we're all really fit, and like last year for Worlds, we, at least for me personally, and I think for the others in the boat last year at Worlds, we peaked pretty well. Like I felt super fit at Worlds. And yeah, he can be really tough, and he has a certain character and like way to go about things, so you kind of have to get used to that. But he could also like joke around a bit, which is nice. But usually he's like very, okay, this is the plan, we do this. He has like, I think he's a big like data guy and like numbers and like keep track of things, which I guess is a very much a coaching personality trait, I'd say. Like I know a lot of coaches who are like very love the numbers and the data. So
do you row with telemetry or scull with the telemetry on the boat?
The like biomech system, like
Yeah.
yeah, we just finished our like block of it here on camp. Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things, the German women's quad has got a very big tradition. The Olympics produced a gold medal in Rio for the German women's quad, and it looked like they were going to win a medal in Tokyo until they caught that crab. How much are you aware of that tradition, or what does it feel like to be part of that?
I'm definitely aware of it. It's always nice to be part of a team that has a tradition of being successful, obviously. I mean, previous years I've been a sweeper, so I just switched to the sculling team fall of 2022. Before that, I had only swept on the national team. But part of my decision to switch was that I wanted to make the Olympics this year, and I figured that if I could do well on the sculling team, my chances of making it would be better, which worked out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it definitely also sets certain expectations. But I think we've been doing well with growing through those expectations, or kind of like using those as motivation and not like something that's looming above us. I mean, we all have certain aspirations, and I think we know what we can do, and we're confident in ourselves and our abilities. So we'll see if we can add to the history.
Yeah. So you may not want to answer this, but feel free if you do. So how set are your goals for Paris now in terms of what you want to achieve and what you think you're capable of? What can you say about that?
Yeah, I think the women's quad field is incredibly strong last and this
Definitely.
season. Like, it's been very close racing. So I do think if we get it right and have a good day on the days that it counts, and have good races, we can do very well. And I think I do see ourselves making the top three. I think that we have the potential for that. But like I said, it's incredibly strong competition, and I think first we have to make the A final. I think that's going to be a
number
big
one.
step.
Yeah.
That's like I personally have the mindset of like I can't really talk about medals without us being able to make the A final, if that makes sense. Like, that step comes before the next one. Of course, that could be like the overarching goal of like I want to get a medal, but I think we have to be aware of how difficult it could be to get into the A final, just because of how strong the competition is and how things can happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, I don't want you to do this because you may well not want to talk about your opponents at all, which is quite understandable. So just duck this question. But what do you think of the women's quads out there in the field?
I mean, I'm terrible at names, so I don't know, but I think it's amazing to have like a strong field, and like to know that it's not okay, one boat goes out and wins it for sure. I think it makes it really interesting. I think between like GB, Netherlands, China, Switzerland, and even like the US coming through final
Ukraine.
qualifications, Ukraine coming through final qualifications. Like, we don't know, we haven't raced those crews, so we don't know what they're capable of this year. I think it's going to be very interesting, and it's very open. I think even throughout the World Cup series this year, like
Yeah,
there wasn't a clear winner each
yeah,
regatta. Like it kind of switched through, which is really cool because it leaves a lot of opportunities for everyone.
yeah. Um, I want to talk shortly about German women's rowing, and I want to talk about Washington and being a husky.
Yeah.
One of the things I'd like to talk about just now is dealing with anxiety. Now, you posted something very powerful on Instagram. Um, Maybe you can say what it was and why you chose to put that out there.
Yeah, so I can talk about like my own situation a bit.
Yeah.
That I've been diagnosed with depression and general anxiety disorder. And I got the diagnosis in 2021.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. And then I've been taking medication for 2 years now, just for the anxiety and depression. And I've been like in and out of therapy. Um, but um, I think what my thought behind like posting about it on Instagram or like talking with people about it in person is that for a really long time I didn't know what was going on. Like for 4 or 5 years I had panic
Hmm.
attacks like or anxiety attacks like at least once a month,
Wow.
and I didn't know that it was not normal. Like I just thought I was being overly emotional, or like I just was having a bad day, or like I was just sad, and that it was just like a character trait or something like that,
Hmm.
or something in my personality. But I didn't know that there was actually like that I was having like uh yeah, that I was depressed or
Mm.
having an anxiety disorder. And learning about it helped me a lot, like getting the diagnosis and knowing, okay, there's something wrong and there's something I can do about it, was really helpful to me. And I think sharing my experience and talking about mental health in sports is
Hmm.
very important, because there's still, I think I think the stigma has gotten better. Like it's not as bad
Hmm.
anymore that like athletes need to be strong and can't show weakness or whatever. Um, but that's gotten better. But it's still like when I talk about it with people, a lot of people are like, "Oh, I'm so surprised that you're so open about this. Like, wow, it's very impressive that you can talk about it." And it's like I want to talk about it to share and maybe help someone else and like make them
Mm.
realize, okay, maybe I should talk to a therapist, so maybe I should like get some help, um, because there's nothing wrong with that. And it's, I think everyone should talk to a therapist at some point. I think
Yeah.
it would be helpful for everyone.
Mm.
Like, yeah, so that's
Yeah.
kind of my thoughts.
Um, well, as we said before we went on air, it's something that I've suffered from in the past, and
Mhm.
been on medication and taken therapy. And I think people that I've spoken to on Crossy's Corner, just recently, Sunita Paspura, who the double world champion in 2018 and 19. She, probably like you, waited too long, but she was diagnosed as suffering from depression, and took medication, and felt significantly better and was able to train better. And other people in the past as well, for different reasons. I think Zoe McBride, the 2019 lightweight women's world champion, has definitely had some issues that she spoke about. Um, what made you, Tabea, seek help. How did that come about?
Yeah, it was so the 2021 season. I took time off from uni to go back to Germany to try and make the Olympics with the German women's eight. So I was in Germany for no, in 2020, yeah, because the final qualifier was
Yeah,
supposed to
yeah,
be then,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But and so that's also when COVID was happening. And after that, in the fall, I went back to uni to Seattle, and we have to have like physical checkup before each season in the fall usually. And we had a really, really great doctor at the time, Dr. Pelto. And during my checkup, we were like talking. He was like asking how I was doing, if I was doing okay. And I kind of just like started crying because I was not
Oh,
doing
wow.
okay during that time. And then he asked me if I would like to seek professional help and like see a therapist. And he connected me with a therapist. So it was like through someone else kind of asking the
Yeah,
right
yeah,
question
yeah.
basically, and then suggesting that I'd seek out a therapist. So I'm really grateful for that. And it made me realize, or it's so interesting how we have all these physical checkups as athletes, but the mental checkups usually lack. Like, yeah.
Yeah. And what sort of time scale was there before you felt, oh, I'm now getting on top of this or able to deal with this far more effectively than before. I'm not being ambushed as much as you described it, I guess.
Yeah. It definitely took some time, and I think so far the biggest help have been the anti-anxiety medication. Like therapy is obviously the most effective when you have like a therapist that you get along with really
Yeah.
well, which I haven't like had the perfect match yet. So I think there's still like more to be gained there. And obviously like my long-term goal is to be able to live well without medication,
Yeah. Yeah.
which will require some work. But I guess so far kind of to like achieve my short-term goals, the medication has been like the best thing for
Yeah.
me. Yeah.
And I'm guessing that in some ways that's really helped the level of your performance in terms of motivation and consistency, that sort of thing. And maybe that might be something that less experienced athletes might be worried about or concerned about or not seek help for that reason, I'm guessing.
Yeah. I'm I guess my like overall performance, I like physically I was doing well beforehand as well. And like but I think I've been able to kind of make it through like training camps and
Mm,
hard workouts or like very stressful weeks much better. um but yeah, I mean, I can only recommend to like
mm,
if anyone thinks that therapy might be something that's helpful to them, or like talking to a psychiatrist about possible medication. I think
yeah,
obviously for some medications you kind of have to like figure out what works best for you.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I know there's some like stronger antidepressant medication that can be a bit tricky to like dial in, or like ADHD medication or
mm,
whatever. But so far, like from my group of people that I'm surrounded by, like where I'm very, very glad and very happy that I have a big group of friends that I can talk very openly about mental health with, and like we can kind of compare
yeah, yeah.
compare notes, I guess. But so far anyone who's been taking medication has been like really, really happy with it, or like going through therapy and like making steps there. So it's
Yeah.
been a very positive thing.
Well, I think you were a remarkable woman in a number of ways, as we found out, and I think that's extremely striking, Tabea. Your willingness to talk about it and help others and share your wisdom and knowledge, which is absolutely amazing. So, thank you for that. I kind of want to talk about University of Washington. Um, did they pick you up when they saw you in the German Women's Junior 8 and think, this person here is maybe a potential husky? So you were recruited, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So in 2016, I was part of the junior national team and rode the Junior 8. And we went to Junior Europeans, won there, and Junior Worlds, we got silver. And that like summer around that time, a couple universities contacted me. But I kind of was most pulled towards University of Washington. I went on an official visit, and it fit, and so I committed and went over in January 2017. So yeah.
What attracted you to Washington?
It's definitely a very beautiful place. Like the rowing area there, like the lakes. It's gorgeous. It's probably top 5 definitely of the most beautiful places to row,
Yeah.
I'd say. And then I guess it was nice to have a couple other Germans on the women's team, to kind of have, I guess, language-wise, to have people there to speak the same language with and kind of like get used to being in America.
Yeah. Who were they?
Kalina and Annemieke Schanze, they're sisters.
Yeah.
I rode the pair in 2019 with Kalina.
In Linz, yeah.
Yeah. And in 2017, Annemieke, Kalina, and I, and then Ida Kruse, who went to Ohio, we rode the 4 at the U23s in 2017. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then later, a year after me, Clara Gruber joined, who was also in the Junior 8 with me in 2016. So yeah, but she joined after me. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're there with Yaz, I guess. Yaz Farouk.
Yeah.
How was it working with Yaz?
Really good. I'm very grateful for Yaz, and like I do respect her a lot. And I think she's a great coach and just a wonderful human in general. And I still, like, every now and then I give her a call just to like chat and kind of, especially if there's like tough situations or I need like rowing advice or whatever, I try to like get her feedback a bit. So definitely like really, really lovely to have her in my corner as well. And I think what she did with keeping on building the program there, it's like really cool. Yeah.
So when you look back on your time, I know, I think you started off in the second Varsity 8 and then you quickly moved into the Varsity 8. When you look back at your results and achievements, what sort of perspective do you have?
Yeah, overall it was an incredible time. I grew a lot as a person. I grew a lot as a rower, and like physically I made huge steps there. Like I came in with like a 7:05 2K. And I remember, I don't know if it was my freshman or sophomore year, Yas told me like, you will go sub 640 eventually. I was like,
wow,
I don't know. But then in 2021, yeah, I finally went 638.6.
oh, fantastic.
So it was like kind of funny for like it's really cool to be like given this like kind of trust and also like the support of like you will do great things. And yeah, during my time at Washington, we were very successful. We each year we made the podium at NCAAs, and in 2017 we swept NCAAs, so we won all 3 boat classes.
Yeah.
Which has never happened before.
Oh wow.
So we made history through that, and it was really, really funny to come in as a freshman and then race in the varsity 8 and like do that and have that as my first year. Like it set the standard really high because I was like, okay, let's do this again. And then in 2019 we did it again.
Yeah.
We swept again, which yeah, the team had a lot of depth, and like there's my time at Washington has a really special place in my heart, and like all the people that were and are part of this team, and like all the it's really a family and just a really great bond that you make with those people there. And kind of building on the legacy and the team spirit there it's really special.
Yeah, I'm thinking of a couple of people because they were very good on the ergo, but one is in the Dutch Olympic team, Simon van Dorp, and the other is sadly, I think Brooke Mooney was injured, and she wasn't able to make the American team, but they were your contemporaries, weren't they?
Yeah, so Simon and I are the same class, so we both came in. He was already there because he came in fall of 2016, and then I joined in the winter quarter. But we're really good friends. We actually, his last year there, and I had already graduated, but I was still in Seattle. We were roommates for a year.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's also nice. He's here in Austria as well. And
yeah.
we, like, had lunch a couple of times. It's he's a wonderful person, like
yeah, he is
one
a
of
really
the
great guy.
best people I know. So it's nice to kind of like form those connections with people who row for different countries, and now whenever I go to like a World Cup or Worlds, there's always people I know from other countries that I can like say hi to or have a chat with or cheer for. So that's really nice. And then Brooke Mooney, she graduated in 2018, so I had 2 years with her. And we were pair partners a couple of times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So in 2017 and 18, I was sitting in 3 seat of the varsity 8.
Yeah.
Mooney was sitting in 4 seat. So
okay.
Yeah, we spend a good amount of time together. She's also a really, really sweet person and incredibly strong on the erg, obviously. Yeah, it's definitely very cool to have like rowed alongside those people and like been part of a team together.
Yeah. Now, I'd like to talk to you about German women's sweep rowing. So, I mean, you were part of a successful junior 8. You got the silver medal behind the Czechs. And I think you've got a bronze at under 23 in the 4. Is that right? So what I'm trying to understand is why the German women's 8 is not quicker than it has been over the past few years. And I don't really understand the reasons why it hasn't performed at the level that it might do when the athletes were younger. I mean, how mystified are you, or what can you say about that?
Yeah, it's definitely a very, very big and frustrating problem overall, I'd say, because I mean, I've been part of the sweeping team from 2017 in U23s, and then from 20 19 on with the senior national team. But I think what part of the problem is like inconsistency with coaches. Like there's been a lot of switches through coaches. Like there hasn't been like a 3 or 4 year chunk of like having one coach who writes one program. There's like every 2 years, every other year, there's just a new coach, which I think can be very disruptive, or like it keeps you from building like on top of things, because you kind of have to start from scratch, or not from scratch, but it definitely disrupts things. And yeah, I think that's part of it. And then there's been so the women's sweeping used to be way back, I think, in Dortmund, and then they switched it to Potsdam, the training center.
Yeah.
And now since 2022, they switched it to Berlin. So there's also like movement from like where the training center would be.
Yeah.
So to centralize, like athletes have to move there and kind of like uproot their lives again to move to a different place, like find a new apartment, switch unis. So like sometimes through that you lose people who aren't able to like, or aren't willing to make that move. And then yeah, I think there's a lot of really good athletes like on the sweeping team.
Yeah.
But I think there's like, I guess there's been a bit of like tricky situations this year with like injury or sickness, and like people being able to race or not, certain races like being raced with a crew that isn't the original like lineup, and then having a good or a bad result. So I think the season like probably could have been planned better, or like adjusted a better way. So I think it's kind of also like a structural thing, or like the coach is having a better plan, I guess.
Yeah. How attractive is it for women to row in the German women's sweep squad and make those sacrifices you talked about, or choices?
Yeah, I think moving to Berlin can be quite tricky because of the housing situation there.
Oh yes.
Like apartments are pretty expensive, and being able to get an apartment is really hard. Like when I moved to Berlin, I was looking for like at least half a year, I think.
No.
And then I eventually got lucky, and I'm really happy with my apartment. But yeah, it's pretty tricky, and there's not, in some, like in Dortmund where the men's sweeping team is, there's a lot of like roommate apartments, and so those kind of get handed down when someone from the senior team like quits or like stops, or is done with rowing. Then a U23 athlete could move in, so that's kind of nice to have that system. Which is not necessarily the case in Berlin. Like a lot of people are living on their own. But yeah, and I think the situation of having a university with being a full-time like high performance national team athlete is really tricky. In Berlin, I think the cooperation between the national team and the universities could be better. And there's like kind of, you have to, like, it takes you 30 minutes or so to get to uni from practice. And then the practice like times are pretty like, they take up a lot of space in your day, obviously. And then with prioritizing recovery as well, it gets really hard to get the uni done as well. So I think if you're someone who's like, okay, I definitely, like, uni is really important to me, you kind of have to like make the decision if you're gonna sacrifice uni a bit and like join the national team or go somewhere else and like do your university. Yeah.
How hopeful are you about German women sweeping in the future?
I hope it gets better.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe that's an unfair question. I so another one. So don't feel you have to answer this. Obviously, one of the big performers in the German team is OeZidler, who is kind of out here, and the German team is here. What's your take on Ollie?
I don't know him super well. Like, I'm not really close with him, which is like, I guess, part of him training in Munich and like doing his own thing. I mean, his story is really incredible to like come from swimming and like get into rowing and become this successful. It's really great, and like the way he does it works for him. So really cool that he gets to do it. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's really nice that he brings in good performances because that's good for German rowing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but it's also interesting that he's kind of separately training and not doing kind of what the plan from the federation is. So it's like the I guess most successful athlete of Germany is like not really training under the program of the federation, but doing his own thing, which is interesting, and I guess could say something about the German rowing system.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's cool. I guess it's Simon is also in the single. I'm really good friends with Simon, so.
Okay. Yeah. I get that. I feel good friends with both of them actually, and conflicted. So German women's single sculling is very strong. I know you talked about Frau Hundling, who's the spare for the team, out with Caroline. I think Julianne Farlish did really well in Poznan, and I think she's entered for Henley. And then of course, and she's another your darkest opponents from Cal, I believe. And then of course Alex Foster. What can you say about those guys?
All really great athletes. Juliana, she went to Cal, so I guess we have that little rivalry going on with Cal. But she's a wonderful person, and we have so much fun together, and it's kind of nice to have like we raced each other like during our college times, and it's nice to have someone to like reminisce on those times and like to understand what it's like to go through a college program in the US. And I mean, Lisa Gutfleisch went to Texas, so
Texas,
the one who studied in the States, and like it's kind of fun to bring a bit of the like American hype to the German team.
Yeah. I gather Juliana's got a special erg score, 2K erg score.
Yeah, she's the fastest German woman on the erg.
Yeah.
I don't know what her PR is, but
20 something I heard, like 26 or something.
Yeah, she's fast. She's incredibly strong.
And what about Alex?
Alex is also training on her own, so she's not here with us. She has like a separate coach, and they're training somewhere else. But she's also really sweet. I haven't. The only time I've raced her in the single was last year at the German Nationals.
Oh wow!
And she had a few back issues before then.
Yeah.
So I don't know if she was at like full. I don't think she was at like her best, but I beat her then.
Oh, well,
But
that's great.
I guess yeah, I was hoping to get a rematch at some point to see,
Yeah,
but that would be really fun. But I mean, she's been doing well, and like single sculling is very different, very interesting. Like
yeah,
I think it's a completely like different race
yeah.
from like, racing a quad or something.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I don't. Since she's training on her own. Like next training camp, I think we'll be together, so we'll get a bit more time together. But it's yeah, a bit
Yeah.
separate.
Um, one thing I wanted to ask was in terms of University of Washington, I saw you had a placement as an intern coach.
Mhm.
And so I thought, oh, that's interesting. I thought, does Tabea want to coach? Or was that just like a means to get you at the university?
No, that was so after I graduated in 2021, I decided that I'd take a break from rowing just because I was really
Mm,
burned out from that season because I raced the final qualifier with the German Women's 8 in
mm.
2021 and then went straight back to uni and raced NCAAs. So it was
Oh,
a
wow.
lot during that season.
Yeah.
But so I decided to take a break from rowing, and I decided to stay in Seattle for a year and work. So I
Ah,
had a full time job at an art gallery because I was an art major, so I had to work in a field that was connected to
yeah.
my degree. Um, and I had spoken with Yas about like volunteer coaching to
Mm,
like kind of support the freshmen a bit, and kind of give back to the program.
yeah. Yeah.
And also that way I could still train if I wanted to. Like I could still like use the facilities.
Oh, wow.
So kind of a good deal for everyone involved.
Yeah. 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 Um, so I did mean to ask you because I saw you did a creative major. So what is your medium in terms of art? Like, how do you express yourself? What sort of art do you produce?
Yeah, I don't really have like one medium. I guess I'm
Mm.
a interdisciplinary visual artist.
Okay.
But I've been doing some lino printing recently and some like
Ah,
acrylic work on canvas and also on like linen, like working and
yeah.
then sewing. But I brought my like lino printing. I have something here. I brought it to camp and
Oh, wow. That's beautiful. Yeah.
um so it's kind of nice to have like a creative outlet and like
Yeah.
working with art or making art like it makes me really happy and like it just brings me a lot of joy and brings me a lot of
Oh,
like peace kind of to like work
yeah.
something, so it's kind of a nice um balance with rowing to
Yes.
sit
Yeah.
down and work on something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I love the colors with that. The you know that lovely pastely blue color. I was going to ask about music,
Mhm.
which was a bit of a lame question, really. Like, were you disappointed that you missed all the Taylor Swift concerts, or are you not a Swiftie?
Not the biggest Swifty. Old school Taylor Swift, like Love Story and
Oh
like Be
yeah,
in Love
yeah,
with Me
yeah,
and that kind of stuff. Like,
yeah,
yeah, that was big during like my years growing up, so
yeah,
that stuck with me. But not too big of a Swifty, so I'm doing okay on
yeah.
not going to those concerts.
So when you're on the erg, what's on your headphones?
Um, it depends. Since moving to Berlin, I've listened to a lot more techno, so
Ah,
on in general on the team, like we for weights, so when we do ergs together we listen to techno a lot. This morning I put on a little bit of like a house disco kind of
yeah,
playlist,
yeah.
which got good feedback, was good fun at work.
That's always nice. Yeah, Yeah.
But I do enjoy like country folk music a lot, like very
Mm-hmm.
chill.
Mm.
But and like indie music, yeah,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
That reminds me, I have to say your American accent is amazing, really. It's
Thanks.
it's like you're a natural American. Um, yeah, I how much do you know what your time after Paris might be like? Like what plans, if any, have you made, or what thoughts have you had, or is it like Paris here and then I'm going to think?
Yeah, in general, I think I'm gonna be done with rowing for now after Paris.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna say I'm never gonna start again because who knows? Like maybe in a year I'll be like, okay, I missed this, I need it back.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, I'm depending on how Paris goes. I've achieved a lot during my time, and I think I've hit a lot of like big things. Like I've been to Henley twice, which was really fun.
Yeah.
And rowing in the States was amazing. And then I've had some good international like senior team level rowing, and we'll see what Paris brings. But I'm kind of ready to move on to a new part of my life and kind of
Wow.
get started with some other things.
Mm.
But we'll see. Maybe I'll be back in a year. Who knows?
And
But,
holiday at
yeah,
all?
I'm gonna fly to Seattle. Yeah,
Ah,
yeah. In September, I'll be
yeah,
over in the States for a couple of weeks.
yeah. And what about any supporters that'll be watching you in Paris, like family or friends?
Yeah, a couple people from my family will be there, like my parents, my brother, uncles, and aunts. So
Hmm.
they got it all figured out with like a place to stay and like tickets and all of that. They've been planning that for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can hear there's a kind of a background noise of people seem to be enjoying themselves, and I kind of feel guilty that you're sat here talking to me.
Yeah.
And
Okay. They're just playing some games. Yeah. So it's kind of nice to have a bit of social time, like every now and then. Usually in the evenings, we like play games, or on the sculling women's sculling team, we've been making like pearl bracelets
oh, beautiful.
and like
Yeah,
necklaces and rings and stuff, which has been really fun to kind of you have to
yeah,
focus, but
yeah.
yeah. Or we watch a show together, so it's like it's really nice, a good like camaraderie together, and like we
Hmm.
enjoy spending time together outside of the boat. So that's pretty
Yeah.
nice. Yeah.
Well, I really hope that you get everything that you want for out of the
Thank
Paris
you.
Olympics, Tabea. It's been marvelous experience talking with you, and wonderful. We've ranged far and wide. I've been talking for over an hour, so a big thanks for me, and yeah, you've been great.
Thank you. It was really lovely to get to know you and chat with you.
Thanks. So we'll end the live part of this interview now. Bye, everybody.